Colin could hear the footsteps of the bear outside his trailer. It wasn't an unfamiliar sound to him, as the animals have been scavenging his area for months, especially when garbage was left out. But there was no garbage left on this fateful night. And for whatever reason, the bear sounded determined to get inside his RV. Colin was dizzy and groggy from the cold medicine he took just an hour ago, but he was sure it wasn't a dream, as he could hear the scraping sounds of the sharp claws against the RV's flimsy metal door. "Oh my God," he said to himself, "it's trying to get in." The bear made its way to the narrow window and stood on its hind legs to catch a good smell of what lay inside the damp RV. It breathed in through its snout, filling its lungs with the stench of Colin's sweat and fear. He could tell the sheer size of the bear by the amount of wind it was able to suck in, as the creature snorted and made its way back to the flimsy door. Colin chambered around into his rifle, and his shaky hands lifted the tool to his shoulder, anxiously waiting for the bear to enter. What's up, guys? Iceman here. So this story is about a very unfortunate encounter that a young man had with a black bear. And it's by far one of the most terrifying bear encounters that I've heard of yet. But before I get into it, I'd like to thank you guys for all your support on this channel, and welcome to all my new subscribers. If you will, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit the bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And if you want to support me further, you can become a channel member or a patron, or buy some merch from my new store, linked in the description below. So let's get into this chilling tale. Colin was an adventurous man who early on decided to live life on his own terms. At 24 years of age, he was considered an old soul by many who knew him. He embarked on the path less traveled and acquired for himself a 10-year-old RV that he paid pennies on the dollar for, and picked up work through a local logging company. He was tall, dark hair, rugged, knew how to swing an axe, and keep his body fit and active through vigorous outdoor work and activity. He settled at a logging camp near the Wow Mountain, about 100 miles southwest of Denver, Colorado, as the raven flies. Colin desired peace above everything else. He had a small community of friends through the logging company and lived a frugal life. A beautiful girlfriend back home who loved him, but he just wasn't quite ready to settle down. Not yet. All the more reason as to why it was such a shame when the bear ripped his head off. Logging can be very strenuous work. Many who worked with Colin became well acquainted with pain medications and alcohol. Long weekends would be spent mending the pain from the work week, sore muscles and aches. Colin refrained from such ailments, but would generally relax on the weekends in his RV, occasionally having his girlfriend over to stay the night, roasting hot dogs over the campfire, or cuddling up under the stars. The various workers would set up their camps near where they worked, often keeping an acre or two to themselves, each having their own bit of privacy. Many black bears were spotted in the region during the time Colin worked there, and more than once he reported to the DNR how they would feast through the loggers' garbage bins and rummage through their outhouses. Not much action was taken in addressing the bears. It was said that 4 black bears were relocated to the region, mostly problem bears that were becoming too habituated with humans, one of which was killed on a nearby roadway from being hit by a semi-truck, but the others roamed free during Colin's stay. It was the night of August 19. Everything changed. Colin heard a scuffle outside his RV. He knew it was a bear, but this one seemed especially determined and angry. He sprung to his feet and made his way over to the door, as something seemed to be attempting to enter his RV. He quickly grabbed his recently acquired 30-06 bolt-action rifle. As the bear problem was continually growing in the area, he and a few co-workers had driven into Denver to pick up firearms. His palms were sweaty as he clenched the wood stock tightly, and he heard something grab at the doorknob of the RV.
"Get out of here!"
he shouted, but no answer. For a moment, there was stillness, but then the creature resumed its attempts to enter the RV. He could hear its paw skid down the thin metal door, hitting the knob again, unlatching the door, but unable to open it. Cullen punched the door from the inside with his fist as a means of scaring the bear away, while grabbing the knob from the inside to hold it shut.
"Get out of here, you damn animal!"
Cullen shouted to the unfazed beast. There was silence and stillness yet again, but it didn't last long. And then, as if emboldened, the bear fiercely struck the door from the outside, denting it inward, nearly breaking it off its hinges. Cullen backed away and raised his rifle steadily. He couldn't believe what he was about to do. He was going to shoot through the door at what he couldn't see, but he knew his life was in immediate danger. He chambered around and aimed at the center of where the giant dent was made in the door, and he fired. The muzzle flash lit up the entire RV, and the piercing sound made a deafening ring in his ears. There was smoke, and the smell of burnt gunpowder filled the RV. The bullet had blasted through the door and scathed the side of the bear, causing damage to its shoulder and outer ribs. He heard a bellow, the sound of rage, the sound of death roar throughout the campsite. The enraged animal ripped the door off, and for a fleeting moment, Cullen could see his fate, the bear's eyes glowing with fire and fervor, the steam coming from its breath on that cool August night, and the massive shifting of its weight and muscle as it charged Cullen in his own RV, swatting the rifle from his arms before Cullen could even think to chamber another round, and covered him like a blanket of black death. Cullen belted out obscene profanities as the bear wrapped its jaws around his head.
"Oh my God!"
The bear's lower jaw latched onto Cullen's chin, with its upper fangs tightly secured around his eye sockets. Cullen exclaimed as the bear squeezed, holding Cullen's jaw shut, preventing him from the mere mercy of releasing his anguish in screams. The bear squeezed harder, crushing Cullen's jaw into his face, the severe pain immobilizing him as his body ragdolled to the floor as if his soul were sucked out of him. Blood poured from his crushed chin and upper jaw. His eyeball popped half out of his head from the sheer bite force of the rampaging creature. The man's arms flailed in desperation and agony as the monster stood over his body, drooling saliva and blood from its mouth. The heavy weight of the creature held the man down. The RV began to fill with the smell of death and decay, but he was still alive when the bear began eating him. After an investigation, it was estimated that the bear returned to the scene on 3 different occasions, each time re-entering the open RV, feasting on the young man's decaying body. On the 3rd occasion, the bear dragged his festering carcass out of the vehicle, about 30 yards out into a small clearing in the thicket nearby, only to defecate and urinate all over what was left of his half-eaten corpse and partially bury him for a later meal. Cullen's absence from work immediately raised questions among the crew. Calls to his phone went unanswered, and on the third day, his remains were located outside the RV. Authorities placed traps near the cache site and waited several days for the bear to return. There were so many bears in the area that after DNA tests on 3 turned up negative, they gave up the search. The offending bear was never located. Jeez, what do you guys think about that story? I can only imagine what it must have been like to be this young man. He almost reminds me of my younger self. I wanted to go against the grain a bit in my early 20s. I didn't want to take on the common peer pressure that everyone else my age decided to take on. I wanted to take the path less traveled, and it's interesting how that is what this young man did. He lived out in the freaking boonies, on his own, being cheap and frugal, still was able to have a lady at his side, but yet had freedom and privacy and the great outdoors. It's horrifying that you might not even be safe in a trailer or an RV out in bear country. And until I read this story, I kind of assumed that a black bear would lay off if warned, that it wouldn't actually continue to pursue you if you were locked away in something like that, especially if you were trying to fend it off or scare it. It's crazy how he actually shot through the damn door and hit the bear, but yet the bear continued to pursue. I feel like I've seen some videos on YouTube where black bears react very interestingly toward intimidation. It's like they see it as a challenge or something, where if you try to intimidate them, they might try and intimidate you back, or they might try and eat you. I saw this video where a black bear would slowly follow some guy who was walking backwards trying to scare it away, and it would climb trees just a little bit and then jump down again and continue its pursuit, as if it was trying to show the guy how strong it was in its upper body, how easily it could climb the trees and jump around like an ape or something. It's like it was trying to prove its dominance to the guy, and the guy would yell at it, and it only seemed to embolden the bear a little bit, as if the bear was either taking it as a challenge or seeing it as fear. But nonetheless, this bear was determined to get the guy inside the RV, and unfortunately it succeeded. But what do you think could have been done differently to prevent this situation? Maybe he had to take another shot. Maybe he needed a different type of firearm. Maybe it's not safe to sleep in a trailer or RV alone in bear country. But what are your thoughts? And I'll have to add how shameful and disgusting it is how after killing you or nearly killing you, it is often the case where a black bear will defecate and piss all over your body as a means to cover up scent and claim its kill. It's really just icing on the cake, and it is just such a horrifying thing to imagine. But nonetheless, I'm curious what you guys have to say about this incident. And again, if you will, like this video and stay tuned for more chilling tales from the Iceman.